record button here. And hit the mute button on the Twitter Spaces. We're live on Twitter Spaces and live streaming across multiple platforms. So first of all, thank you so much, everyone, all the panelists for joining. We're going to jump into introductions in a second. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Albert, CEO of Bitcoin Startup Lab. Welcome to the Bitcoin Olympics Hackathon. This is a Bitcoin ecosystem-wide hackathon where multiple Bitcoin communities, protocols, and champions have come together to support, reward, and celebrate the innovative spirit of founders and builders on Bitcoin to create valuable use cases for a sustainable Bitcoin economy. This show is brought to you by Bitcoin Startup Lab. We're a top pre-accelerator in the Bitcoin ecosystem space. We help you turn your ideas into investment-worthy startups on Bitcoin. And a big shout out to our media partners. First is BTC Inc., parent company of Bitcoin Magazine. They're top media on Bitcoin, and CryptoSlate, a crypto-agnostic media platform that brings the latest happenings on Bitcoin to the rest of the crypto world. And of course, a big thank you to all the teams, all the guest speakers, and everyone that has come together to make the Bitcoin Olympics Hackathon possible and accelerate the advent of the Bitcoin economy. So with that said, let me invite everybody up. We have Cypher here from Luxor Mining. We have Brian here, right, from Ordinal Spot. We have Danny Yang from On-Chain Monkeys MetaGood, Charlie, again from Luxor Mining, Bob Bodley from Bionics, Dylan from Bitcoin Magazine, and Robin from Liquidium. Welcome up here, guys. How are you guys doing? Wonderful, wonderful. So how about we go around the room? Let's do a quick intro. I'm sure the audience is curious why you guys have come together to share what potential unicorn companies are on the horizon, right? Or what kind of ideas can evolve into that. So before we get into that, can you guys briefly get into your background and what you guys are doing? And how it relates to ordinals. If we could keep it under 1 minute each, that'd be perfect. Thanks. And maybe we should just go in the order I see you guys. I see Cypher here on the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, so when you say with regards to ordinals, do you mean just why we care about it or what we want to see?
Yeah, how about this? Like, for the audience, like, we're going to break this into basically 4 parts. One, we're going to do some intros and your backgrounds, how it relates to ordinals. This is the first part. The second part of the show or this panel discussion will be about the timing of building out ordinals. The third part of the show is we're going to do a dive into what are some of those ideas that potentially could turn into unicorns that are built on ordinals, right? And then finally, the fourth part, we're going to open up the floor for a Q&A. So let's start from the top. Cypher, what has, like, who are you, and, like, you know, what have you done for the ordinals movement? I know it's a lot, but let's let the audience know what you've done.
So I'm Cypher. I have been involved with ordinal since about February 4th. I think I joined the Discord. You could say involved longer if you count Charlie being on his phone before that, you know, while we're trying to get other things done, staring at the Discord, and then finally telling me about how fun this all was. Was involved early on in the Discord with onboarding a lot of people to running a full node, which was required initially to be able to engage with ordinals. Specifically, the Ord client was the only ordinalsware wallet available at that time. Now we've got multiple options there. It was the only feasible way to inscribe early on. Now we've got, you know, 1,000,001 inscription services. So, yeah, I would say my main contribution has mostly been just being in the ecosystem and telling people when they're making terrible, terrible mistakes, and then they will make them, and we'll go down that path, and we'll discover, you know, a month or two later that maybe this was a terrible mistake.
Wonderful. Welcome, Cypher. Thank you for the introduction. We're looking forward to some of the input you have about the timing and what kind of ideas you want to see come to life at the hackathon and moving after that. Next up, we have Brian from Ordinal Spot.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Brian, co-founder of Ordinal Spot. We are a inscription as a service. And as Cypher mentioned just a second ago, at the very beginning, you know, it's quite a technical hurdle for people to onboard and set up their node, and we basically kind of automated that process for a lot of people. And we're building out a lot of tooling and things around that to make it easy for people to get involved and start building apps on top of Ordinals, from inscriptions to marketplaces to all sorts of cool things. So yeah, excited for the panel today, talk to everybody, and overall super bullish on Ordinals and what it's been bringing to the Bitcoin space.
Super. Welcome, CEO of OrdinalsBot, Brian. Thank you. Next up, we have Danny here from On-Chain Monkeys.
Hey everyone, so I'm Danny, and let's see. I entered Ordinals, or rather, OCM entered Ordinals with an inscription of 10,000 monkey images on Bitcoin on February 8th, and my background is I was building on I guess my first Bitcoin company was a Bitcoin exchange, so it started in 2013. Today it's the largest cryptocurrency exchange in Taiwan, and really excited by the continuous progress of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Ordinals is like the biggest thing for Bitcoin in recent years, and happy to support the development of the protocol and educate the space on its potential, especially around digital assets. So Bitcoin, the blockchain, is great for the fungible token Bitcoin, but it's also great for other digital assets. Around art, we launched a curated Ordinals marketplace around art, Osura, OSURA, but also for future types of digital assets. It could be land title, something I worked on in the past. These things are possible, and we'll find out what developers and businesses think of in the coming years.
Super. Welcome, Danny. Next up, we have Charlie from Luxor Mining.
Hey, yeah, Charlie, been in Bitcoin a long time, Bitcoin enthusiast, local Bitcoin meetup organizer even. I've been mining Bitcoin. I come from the world of energy and market research, so I have a independent partnership which deploys Bitcoin mines out into the oil field, if you're familiar with like the natural gas Bitcoin mining. And I found myself an early contributor and kind of educator in the project just early on those first few chaotic months, and rolled that into now a fun gig with Luxor. Cy4 and I kind of tag team the Ordinals focus side of the business. Not really sure what my title is: strategy, content, everything, business development. We all wear a lot of hats, so it's really cool. Luxor is one of the largest mining pools. And so has a history of innovating, and now I get to be on the innovation side of Luxor, so that's really fun.
Super. Thanks for that introduction, Charlie. Next up is Bob.
Yeah, hey everyone. Super happy to be here. I'm Bob Bodley, CEO and co-founder of Bionic. Bionic is an Ordinals marketplace that we are building on a Bitcoin sidechain called ICP. You can see I'm rocking the hat today if you're on YouTube. One of my favorite hats. It just fits really well. So also very interested in all things Bitcoin layers, whether it's meta protocols or layer 2s or zero knowledge rollups or sovereign rollups. Just by the nature of building on a side chain, I kind of got sucked into the world of layers on Bitcoin and how we can continue to scale and add programmability to Bitcoin. So excited to be here.
Super. Thank you for that, Bob. Welcome. Next, we have Dylan from BTC Inc. Bitcoin Magazine.
What's up, guys? Glad to be here. Yeah, I do business development for BTC Inc., the conference coming up. We have Amsterdam in October and Bitcoin Magazine. And just personally have been an Ordinals enjoyer since January and February, and just thought it was like super net positive for Bitcoin. And once I kind of went down the rabbit hole and understood it a little bit more, wanted to be involved as much as I could, and ended up meeting a lot of founders in the space, a lot of collection founders and infrastructure founders, and trying to help Bitcoin Magazine and the fund get involved as much as we could. So it's been a cool ride, and trying to contribute to Ordinals professionally and personally. So yeah, pumped to be here.
Super welcome, Dylan. And last but not least, we have Robin from Liquidium.
Hi, yeah, I'm Robin, the CEO and co-founder of Liquidium, and we built the first ordinal lending protocol on Bitcoin, where you can collateralize your ordinals and borrow native Bitcoin against them, kind of bringing NFT lending, what we already had on Ethereum and Solana and so on, to Bitcoin, the mother chain, and making it better here. So yeah, every one of you can now borrow Bitcoin against your ordinals.
Thank you for that, Robin. And so as we can see, we have an all-star lineup here. Everyone here was already informed about ordinals either before the January 20th announcement, right, or a few days right after, right? So and we also have several pioneers here building with ordinals, different aspects with different Bitcoin technologies, which is super exciting. You know, we have people building on side chains or L2s, and then we have people building ordinals from L1 as well, right? So I think we have a pretty good diversified representation of different types of experts from the ordinal space. So let's jump into it, right? I think maybe one of the biggest topics right now is about timing, right? So for those of you who want to get into space, the timing is right now to apply to the Bitcoin Olympics, right? You could just click on the BTC Startup Lab icon here and apply. That way you can get in with the in crowd and build something really awesome, especially if you get inspired now, which I'm pretty sure you will be if you're listening in. So about that timing, right? There's a lot of haters out there right now saying ordinals are dead, you know, like giving out like some false information, right? Boo on them, right? So what's the real deal, guys? I mean, I think we have like 25 million, over 25 billion inscriptions now, but what's like, what do you guys think about the timing right now? Like it is true that things have slowed down, but no matter how you look at it, like on a scale and in terms of number of inscriptions per day, it's like light years beyond what it was in January and February, right? But like honestly speaking, right, if you're a new builder coming into space, how would you what are some of those like signs that you can look at that you can, instead of guessing, maybe it's more like scientific, right? What are like some of the top signs you guys look for? I like to hear from everybody. It's just like whoever has the idea on that.
I'll jump in first.
Yeah.
I was just going to say this right now, it might be the best time in history to build on Bitcoin. If you look at the maturity of Bitcoin itself, plus the decentralization and security of the main chain, plus just the growth we've seen generally in NFTs or fungible tokens on other chains, and kind of the case of like, Bitcoin is the mother chain, and we'll do a bunch of other experiments and bring the best back. There's a pretty solid case for Bitcoin being for builders again, like the Bitcoin Renaissance, VCs getting interested in putting money into Bitcoin again. Where a couple of years ago it was kind of like a black hole to invest in the Bitcoin space, but lots of companies
Just like a few months ago, just end of last year was still black hole, right? Just like
yes.
This last few months was a tipping point. Yeah,
but I've chatted with tons of VCs that now have a Bitcoin thesis. Either they're developing their Bitcoin thesis or they already have one and they're actively talking to companies. So just generally, it's the best time to build on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's for builders again.
I'd agree with that macro sentiment. Absolutely. We've also seen the same thing, right? Like last year was, Robin, how hard was it to raise last year? But this year is like, piece of cake compared to last year, right, Robin?
Yeah, I think so. I think like if you have like a decent thing with ordinals right now, there's definitely a lot of demand from the investor side, VC side, also angels. I think there are a lot of people that actually made a ton of money with Bitcoin, and they always like wanted to put their money back into Bitcoin, but there weren't so many companies that were building on Bitcoin. And now we actually have these companies building on Bitcoin. So yeah, I think there are a lot of angels as well that just want to put their money somewhere where like value for Bitcoin is created.
So I'm actually curious because your company, you guys were one of the first on the scene. If we're talking about lending using ordinals as collateral, you guys were the very first, and you guys basically transact in Bitcoin, right? the users they get Bitcoin loans, and then the borrowers they get Bitcoin yield back, and then you guys are taking a transaction fee in Bitcoin, so it's like a fully operational Bitcoin company right now, right? So what are you seeing like compared to when you guys first launched many months ago versus today? Like how's the action different? You guys went through all the steps, right? Now you guys are live. What do the numbers tell us about the market right now, about the timing?
Yeah, so yeah, we are like completely on layer 1 Bitcoin right now. Like I think about 9 months ago at this point, we were on stacks. This was when like ordinals were not something that people were talking about or thinking about. I guess maybe there were some early birds, but yeah, in February is when we started building with ordinals, and on stacks, like the market is pretty small. I still think that what stacks is trying to do is great. Maybe stacks is just a little bit too early, because like I think you first have to create the demand on the layer 1 chain and kind of figure out the limits there, and then you can scale to other chains. But yeah, when we pivoted to Bitcoin, what we saw is we have a lot of the same people from other ecosystems. So actually, like a lot of people that just transitioned over to native Bitcoin. And then when it comes to user demand, so we put out a wait list for our ordinal lending platform, even though we were already live on stacks. And overnight, we had over 15,000 people applying for this waitlist. So the demand was just crazy. So this was in May. I think this was kind of when ordinals were in a big hype phase. But we actually see that most of the people are staying around, especially the builders. Like all of the builders are still here. We're all in this panel right now. And there are tons of other builders right now. And yeah, I think it's just that the public visibility of ordinals right now is maybe a little bit going down, but we were in a bear market. We're still in a bear market. And I think that's what we kind of have to keep in mind. Like the demand and traction that ordinals got in a bear market is just outrageous.
I might jump in here and bring up the analogy of the Gartner hype cycle of adoption of a technology, where you have initial overexuberance and then what's often referred to as the trough of disillusionment. That is the cooling off and kind of pulling back of the hype. And then after that, you have like kind of real sustained building. I'm not saying that's necessarily what's happening here, but it feels a lot like that to me right now, in that we got very over our skis the past few months. I had a blast. It was so much fun. But I mean, the reality is that most people, even though we built out a ton of great tooling in ordinals, most people don't have the option to just point, click, interact, do things, and it's just going to take time and developers and hackers from stuff like the Bitcoin Olympics to build out this ecosystem.
Yeah, super. I love that. I love that like Gartner innovation cycle is so we're sort of like in the disillusionment part, right? And then we're gonna, after that, it's gonna be like bonkers. So yeah, in a sense, this is the best time to start building, right? When everyone else is afraid, get ahead, right? I'm actually curious also to hear about what Brian's doing over there at Ordinal Spot, because as I understand it, you guys were one of the first, if not the first, like inscription service to hit the market, like number 1 or 2, right? So what is this like? When did you guys go live? Was it February or
February 7th?
Whoa, that's like like 2 weeks. Like yeah, okay. So you guys jumped on it fast. But I'm just curious, like on a small tangent, did you know that they're making this announcement before, like January 20th? Like, how did you?
No, well, yeah, I think I fell down the ordinals rabbit hole basically end of January and inscribed some stuff, like just I got some friends of mine to inscribe it on their own node and things, and then it was actually during that time I thought, well, I don't know how to set up a node. I'm not a Bitcoin dev or anything. Like I'm a front end developer, and I'm sure I could have reached out to Cypher, and I think by this point he's done about 2,000 onboard, 2,000 people, which is incredible, right? But at the same time, you know, we're probably not going to get 100% of people creating their own node. And I think at the beginning, I noticed that might be a service, and our other co-founder was also on a similar vein, and he's a Bitcoin dev. He's been building Lightning apps actually for years, and we had this kind of same idea, and we just knocked up a front end. He installed the Odd client, and I knocked up a front end. We launched it over the weekend, and just at that time, the Bitcoin Punks collection was actually getting launched, being inscribed. And at the time they were doing it via their Discord, like OTC, people were saying, give me $500, or it was in the order card, I think, as well. Give me $1,000 and I'll inscribe this punk for you. And we're like, $1,000? And it's like totally trusted, horrible stuff. So we're like, someone needs to automate this, you know, and then that's what we did. And it leaked kind of in their Discord. And then we suddenly got just an influx of degens try to inscribe these punks, and they just completely melted our server. So like on it, we launched and then we melted like 6 hours later, and then we went down, scaled up, and then we got back online. But we ended up inscribing about 80% of that collection actually at the beginning. So it was a crazy time. And yeah, and since then we've just been following the same thesis. How do you automate this, and how do you build the tooling to make it easy for people to just get involved in the space?
Yeah, no, thanks to that. So I'm asking the right person here. So February 7th, you guys launched in a few days, and then it became one of the most widely used inscription services. Now, can you give the audience sort of like an idea, like what were the ordinals numbers in around February 7th, like the month of February versus this month? Because
yeah,
I mean, you have very hard data here, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
yeah.
I inscribed my PFP at 1,160. So my PFP was really early. And I think we started inscribing on the bot around about, I would say 3,000 or 4,000, because I remember very clearly the meta of, oh, I want to inscribe my collection before 10,000. That was the first one. Everyone wanted to get in before this magic 10,000 number. Yeah. And then that quickly went to 100,000. Then it was, I want to get in before 1 million, and then it was 10 million. So that's been going on ever since then. It's been really funny. But yeah, we've been at the beginning since the low 3,000s, I would say. And then back then it was just people, you know, really just inscribing, you know, their family photos or memes or whatever. And then the collection meta really started to kick in, and people wanted to find out how to do that. And then people hit a lot of roadblocks there, because you can't just inscribe 10,000 4-megabyte images, right? You know, unless you want to spend a fortune. So that's where the tricks like you know, OCM used and different things, like the early days of recursion started to come into play. How do you optimize things? What other tricks can you do to get these big, larger collections on there? And that's where all the really exciting stuff happened.
So in February, how many inscriptions were created in February, roughly?
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly when we hit the 10K mark. Maybe one of the other guys know when the 10K mark hit. That was a big kind of turning point.
I guess it's like 5 figures, right? Like in the tens of thousands in February.
Yeah, we didn't do 100K until March, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like late March.
Right. Yeah, so February was when it started taking
last month.
Yeah, I think under 10K went for quite a while, because actually no, it went from under like 5K to 10K really quickly, but under 5K was quite a while. Basically, I think it was around the 5K.
We're like in the tens of thousands for February. So just to give everyone like a feeling of where the market is, what about the last 30 days?
What's happened the last 30 days?
It's been like a 6 figures or so each day. That's the thing.
It's like 300, 400,000 a month at this point. And how many a day? 6 figures a day.
Yeah, 6 figures. Yeah, so that's massive. That's like what is that, over like a 100? Sounds like over like a 100x increase, right? So I don't know what people are saying about ordinals are dead, but it sounds like and Brian, you have crossover. You're like Danny, right? You guys both you guys know the Bitcoin space, but you guys also have had some success in the Ethereum space too, right? So can you give the audience sort of like this idea of like how big is like the Ethereum NFT market versus like where the ordinals is? You know, I want people to sort of get an idea of, you know, how much more room we have to grow. And like Brian, like whoever wants to chime in, like please do.
Definitely. I mean, I've got a relatively small collection compared to on-chain monkeys. That they're a huge collection compared to Satoshiables. But yeah, I launched Satoshiables back in 2021 on Ethereum, just when the NFT kind of craze was happening, and then overnight basically had a community, right? We have a community of people still here today. And then, so I know what it's like to go through the ups and downs of the NFT market. And we went all the way down on Ethereum. And I think that the Bitcoin side of things has really just sparked a lot of new energy in the space. And I think it's, my big difference is that everybody in the world knows Bitcoin. Not necessarily everyone knows Ethereum, but everyone knows Bitcoin. And I think that's bringing with it a lot of excitement. And people potentially getting into digital assets or NFTs for the first time as well, which is interesting. So I think there's so much room to grow here still on Bitcoin in terms of digital assets and where the space goes. And I think that big pioneers like OCM, and there's been a couple of other huge collections from Ethereum dabbled in this space as well. More of that should happen over the next few months. I would hope to see people getting involved and bringing over their brand and their community. And that brings more adopters into the wallet. It gets people understanding how it works. And then from there, they launch their own collections and it just explodes that way. So yeah, I would really love to hear what Danny's thoughts are coming from Ethereum and bringing it over as well, especially with a community with his size as well.
Yeah, I'm curious, like where is like the ordinals in terms of like numbers or like the vibrance compared to, you know, where Ethereum is with the NFT?
It's very much the early days. I mean, there's a lot of depth here with, you know, ordinals. It's a new protocol, it's new technology, and it's a new digital asset class. So it's not just NFTs. NFTs is very broad. It's like saying blockchain, right? Like when there's a new blockchain comes up, you don't say, oh, it's a blockchain. You talk about what's significant about that blockchain, you know, the things about it. And right now in NFTs, people just say NFTs. They don't talk about the significant parts of certain aspects of NFTs or the category of the NFTs. And so for ordinals is actually the digital artifact aspect of it, which is actually quite new as a concept. And well, the concept is pretty new because, you know, Casey defined, oh, this is what I say digital artifact is, and it has these properties. And basically he named 5 of them, right? He said they're ownable, they're complete, they're uncensorable, they're immutable, and what was the last one? Immutable and permissionless, right? So these are 5 properties of digital artifact, and it's actually, each one is quite important. And that define this new asset class that ordinals protocol is for. But even that is not complete or rather it's a too simplistic view of even ordinals protocol and digital artifacts, because then you think, well, okay, yeah, a JPEG monkey is a digital artifact. Yeah, it is, if you put it on ordinals in this way. But so is code that generates the JPEG monkey or the image of a monkey, or it could be an application that maybe runs some interesting decentralized application, right? These are all digital artifacts and they will lead to different use cases. So it's actually very broad and people are just exploring them right now, right? And what happened like back in January, February was, well, we figured out how to do the JPEG, which is cool. But then we figured, oh, we can do code that leads to generative art. I think the art use case will be a kind of early one that people can understand and wrap their head around, because you can own art, you can appreciate art. So it has kind of understood value that's being created. And you can have the counterpart on Ethereum, right? Art blocks was one of the things on Ethereum that grew in the early days of NFTs on Ethereum, right? And it built a vibrant community and people understood, why they're paying money for this NFT, right? It's art, it's on chain, it's on Ethereum in a certain way. And actually what's interesting about art blocks on Ethereum is they try to do things. So the Ethereum ERC 721 standard is a certain type of protocol for basically trading certificates. You can trade certificates on Ethereum. And so what art blocks want to do is actually you want to actually have art on Ethereum. And so they had to design around this process to actually have art on Ethereum. It wasn't great because Ethereum wasn't designed for it. But here in ordinals, which is why it's so exciting, one aspect is so exciting for an early use case for art is it's designed around actually creating these digital artifacts, which is basically a medium for art on Bitcoin. It's actually a very natural use of the ordinals protocol to create art on Bitcoin. So I think that's kind of one of the early applications that people that the new market can wrap their head around and join the ordinals ecosystem. Like here's art, and then we studied this already, right? There's a bunch of artists they're realizing this and making art, and the collectors are collecting the ordinals that are art, tied to art. But it doesn't have to be art, right? It could be land titles. It could be many things. I mean, with kind of the simplicity of the protocol, but also the power of like reinscription and changes of state. I know I've talked to Bob about this. That can lead to interesting programs and applications that can be developed on top of Bitcoin. But in terms of like the size of that, that's a much bigger market. We see that growing on Ethereum, right? With ERC20 was a big use case for Ethereum, where you have Uniswap and these dApps, right? So these are the kind of potential that we could see develop on Ordinals, but in a different way, because the two chains are very different. Bitcoin and Ethereum are very different. But right now, none of that exists on Bitcoin. But there's potential for it.
Well, thanks for that. So it's pretty clear that there's a lot to be building with, but not enough builders right now because a lot of these things are just waiting to evolve, right? And I was just looking online before this panel. Ethereum before we had the big Ethereum NFT boom in later 2021. I think that's about when the Ethereum boom hit, right? I think the figure of number of NFTs right before the boom was around 25 million, right? 25 million, and I think we passed the 25 million mark on Ordinals inscriptions. So of course, like some of those are BRC. Charlie, what was that statistic? Like what percentage are BRC20 versus what percentage are like?
It's the lion's share. It's the vast majority. Of the 25, 26 million inscriptions, it's like 22 or so are. I mean, it's in that range. Are BRC20, which I mean, I've mentioned this before. I almost like distinguish them into a different class of inscription. But yeah, it's still wild. Technically, as we define inscription, we are hitting it at 6 figures a day.
Wow, that's incredible. So I think it's fair to say that the timing is like just right. Or even if you're coming in now, although you guys in the audience, you guys aren't like these pioneers, right? But you guys could be the next wave of pioneers, right? Because as innovation goes, we have to it's like layer upon layer, and it never really stops, right? So on that point of innovation, let's go around the room and see like what are some of the things that you think could potentially evolve into a unicorn using Ordinals technology. I mean, I think we didn't hear from like Cy4 and Dylan here, so maybe you guys could kick off this round, and then we'll work ourselves back around to other panelists.
Yeah, I kind of purposely held off because I knew my answer was going to touch on both of these. So better to kind of answer them both at the same time.
Go for it. Timing and what you think will become, or some categories that might become ordinal unicorn startups.
So the timing thing is tied into what can become a unicorn, because at the end of the day, you need a user base if you want to create a unicorn product. And a user base will only exist if there's a reason for them to use something or want something. So right now we have a new creation on Bitcoin. This attracts a user base of Bitcoiners who are already here. It attracts NFT owners and collectors who are coming from other chains. It attracts development mindshare. These are all potential customer base. But a lot of people have overlooked what I think is potentially the most valuable customer base right now. Because we can talk about sales funnels all day long. We can talk about how you're going to sell an inscription service, like, Ordinals Bot's done pretty well with. Or you could talk about sales funnels for developers. So instead of why Ordinals, you need to go up a level and say, well, why Bitcoin? Or up a level from that and say, why blockchain? Expand the funnel out and think about why you'd make each of these steps down the process. And this both answers what can become a unicorn. You'll find unicorns on that path down the funnel. But more importantly, you'll find out the reason why you should build it in the first place. The answer for why blockchain can be varied. It can be that you are, anti-establishment. That's a choice. It could be that you don't want to set up a bank account for your startup that you're not sure will actually ever even become a true startup. Like there's time investments and cost, opportunity cost in taking the time to do those things if you're not sure of it and you want to just test out the idea. Blockchain's excellent for that. You know how easy it is to open an account on, any blockchain. and start taking payments on your little microservice that you're experimenting with, like that's a couple hours of dev work tops. So then you can kind of follow that logic down. Well, why Bitcoin then? What makes Bitcoin down that funnel? What makes Bitcoin the next decision people are going to follow to? And one of the things we like typically as people is we like things that have been around for a while. And, you know, with effectively Bitcoin being one of the few things with over 10 years of existence without, you know, breaking changes, disregarding SegWit, I would argue that makes it the market leader no matter what happens with actual value of tokens and coins. Those are largely irrelevant to building a product. At the end of the day, people will always want to go back to the original.
Well, hold on. Let me pause here. So that almost sounds like people should unplug from other blockchain ecosystems and rebuild.
Absolutely not.
Like what is that then?
No. That I think that is an indication that you will have a larger future target audience on Bitcoin than you do currently. Okay. And what's more is I think if your target is developers like mine is, when I talk about a sales funnel like this, I think that there's going to be a lot of mind share of very capable developers on Bitcoin for now because of the filters in place. It's a good opportunity to pick those people up. It's a good opportunity to build tooling that targets those people, makes their lives easier, right? And then eventually get down to why ordinals. And I think this one is the only one where I switch to a user perspective. Ordinals are fun. Ordinal theory and inscriptions makes Bitcoin fun. And if you can take something that people kind of had an interest in, or, you know, culturally have an interest in, or financially have an interest in, and make it fun, that's more powerful than almost any other way of developing technology. Like the internet wouldn't have reached the widespread adoption it did if it wasn't really fun to send trolly things to each other over copper cable between your houses. Or I guess now we just shoot light at each other, but you know, technology evolves.
You touched on a lot of what I was thinking, so we got to put another dollar in the Cypher was right jar. It's just filling up, but I think like what originally got me super excited about this was there's kind of like ordinals on their own are a lens to view sats through and UTXOs, right? And like if you zoom out a little bit, you can look at ordinals in different ways, and like what we've been talking about so far is kind of speculation, but like fundamentally there's very cool aspects of ordinals, like putting data on the most secure, you know, ledger of all time, and, you know, inscribing things like files and whistleblower material, stuff like that. What I think you just talked on that I thought was super interesting was ordinals as like a Trojan horse for Bitcoiners, for future Bitcoiners, which is what got me very excited about it. I think it's like, it's been proven out on other chains that there's demand for the cultural aspect and the art aspect, and it can be done better on Bitcoin and more trustless and secure, and basically inherit all of the properties that Danny mentioned from Bitcoin. Like those are ultimately just, you know, the incredible properties that make Bitcoin what it is, and ordinals are inheriting those, and that's why it caught on, and that's why it unlocked capital and interest from Bitcoiners who for years hadn't been interested and hadn't really wanted to rotate capital or speculate. And speculation has basically been the best marketing tool since crypto has started. So I think ordinals are like a moat to create Bitcoiners. Like everyone said, that first month was insanely fun. And we basically watched people create nodes and learn coin control and learn self-custody. And it was all because they wanted to get their hands on a monkey JPEG. So ordinals are going to be big, and the target market is bigger than you think. It's not just Ethereum NFTs. That's like the low end. I think it's like Bitcoiners and just ways to use Bitcoin on chain. So
true that is the low end. I think it's become obvious now that the same JPEG inscribed on Bitcoin is worth a lot more. Speaking about monkeys, but not JPEGs. Let's go to. Thank you for that, by the way, Dylan. I think that's a great overview. Let's go to Danny because Danny has jet pretty soon. But On-Chain Monkeys and MetaGood, the parent company, have put up some prizes for ordinals. Also, that's like one level prizes. We also have a $50,000 agnostic prize. So anything that's with ordinals or with Bitcoin in general actually can also qualify for that prize. So you could definitely qualify for multiple prize pools at a hackathon. So again, if you guys want to sign up, go to @BTC Startup Lab, @BTC Startup Lab and sign up. Okay, but let's focus here on turn our attention to Danny here. Danny, you guys have generously put up some prizes, right? Some of it's cash, some of it is the Genesis collection, and you'll have your Karma collections. These are all like very valuable, right? But what do people have to do to win these prizes?
Yeah, so going back to the earlier comment, making Bitcoin fun. So this is, and also, digital artifacts as a medium for art. So we want people to actually create some art, and that's what our prize is for. And in particular, actually, to use recursive inscriptions, kind of the power of ordinals. That there's p5.js, there's 3.js. We could describe other libraries if needed, but those two in particular are like powerful libraries, for creating art. So yeah, I mean, we're basically encouraging artists to come and create something, meaningful, right, on Bitcoin, and that's what we're rewarding for, in particular for this hackathon. So it's not so much like developer reward; it's actually an artist reward to create art.
All right, so create art that leverages the OCM dimensions, like some of the libraries that were inscribed there. Okay, can you, what are some of the like if the collection uses the dimensions technology, what extra functionality or features can the art take on?
Well, so it's actually one that actually powers of recursive inscriptions and ordinals, the protocol, right, where you can build off of previous code. And so when we inscribe dimensions, we included these libraries like the 3.js, this decompression library, so that you can actually have things inscribed or compressed before you inscribe, and actually auto decompresses when you open in the browser. The whole idea of using the browser to view inscriptions is actually super powerful. Like that's part of the protocol, ordinals protocol. And basically in the browser is kind of this universal platform that the world uses. And you can use that to view things on Bitcoin now with the ordinals protocol. And it's actually quite amazing. And ordinals protocol is at version, release 0.8.2, right? And there are a few features many of us here are waiting on that add a lot more power even to what is possible today. Today, it's actually powerful for creating art, like generative art that uses recursion. But I think the next level is actually creating powerful programs that use reinscription to track state changes. I think that's coming next, and also future recursive calls, right? Because right now we have one recursive call / content. There's going to be different ones, and actually it's also a benefit for even just big people building not focus on ordinals, but just in terms like for example, like the perfect Bitcoin block XOR could be just an ordinal inscription in the future, that you just go to this inscription and you can start browsing, the
cool.
So I mean, that's the type of thing that's coming anyway. But for us right now, right, because we're at 0.8.2, I think we're going to encourage some artists to do some cool, fun stuff that people can enjoy. So that's our early contribution here.
Well, yeah, no, that's definitely going to incentivize some people to do some really, really cool stuff. Now, Danny, if you weren't so busy managing and growing MetaGood and OCM, and if you had to stay in the ordinals category, what do you think? What ideas or categories within the ordinal space would you build now before the market starts getting crowded? Basically, something that potentially has massive growth and commercial potential.
I think anything that improves the user experience, it will be actually very, very valuable. Today it's just so hard to do anything. It's like early internet, like when Nets came out, that improved the experience for surfing the internet. Now it's massive. So you have that opportunity to do that, basically surfing the value chain, surfing Bitcoin it's something that's easier to use, right? Because so far Ordinal is still is for the engineer. It is not for the regular person, but it can be, especially with the stuff that people are making, like let's say art. Just makes easier user experience. Easy ways to just put your credit card in, buy some art for $100. You can't really do that today with Ordinals, but someone I'm sure can make it happen pretty soon.
Thanks for that tip. Hopefully somebody starts tackling that problem at the hackathon. User experience is sorely needed in this space. What about some of you others? I mean, I'm really curious. Yeah, Charlie there.
Yeah, I have some views on this because you talk about like what are the billion-dollar or the unicorn type business models.
Yeah.
And I would say user experience is a very obvious one, and that's a massive design space. But I would say there's stuff that we've only talked about in concept, stuff that is like that are unicorn ideas on other blockchains, but for some reason we haven't really talked about what it looks like on Bitcoin. I look at ordinals as like Cypher, and I think many of us do, as a kind of DID system native to Bitcoin. One of the big, and you can see this happening in the narrative, is that decentralized identifiers are this is like the holy grail of types of new ideas. And so I think this is a massive opportunity for investment and design and builders. And then I also look at, the world of DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. Again, that word is broad, and decentralized means it's more of a vibe than is a specific definition here. But I look at like DAO tooling, and humans want to organize and self-organize, and we want to do it with interaction with these blockchains. I think there's a huge opportunity to say, okay, what does this concept of like organization, further organization on chain look like? And so I would be looking at, obviously you can copy and paste the similar DAO tooling that exists on other chains, but say, what does it actually look like to construct and organize humans and different types of systems on chain? And I think Ordinals very much has a role to play in this. I'm not specifically sure what it might look like, but that's one of those, like those are two main things, DIDs and DAOs, in just
Very
broad strokes. Those are two huge design spaces, and Ordinals has a lot to do with it.
Oh man, those are both huge. Yeah, DIDs and DAOs. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, I just want to jump in on the UX side as well. Actually, my background is in UX design, so I kind of studied UX design and then went into front-end web development because I wanted to make my designs work. So I kind of self-taught myself front-end development, and I love UX. I love designing good UX, and I think with Bitcoin, pre-ordinals, it was horrible, right? I mean, it was really difficult for anybody to get involved. You have to follow 25-step GitHub tutorials to just like install a wallet, and like retail don't want that. Retail want to come in, click a button, get their thing, share it, and make it really easy. And chains like Ethereum and Solana have got a real head start on Bitcoin, right? Because they've obviously had a good few years now of DeFi and NFTs and things. But even those seasoned UX designers and Web3 from those chains can still come to Bitcoin and invent new UX, because it is a fundamentally different chain, right? You've got the 10-minute block times, it's slower, UTXOs, it's completely different. There's no smart contracts. So there's a huge opportunity and exciting time for if you are a UX designer to come in and solve these problems and make them really fluid and easy for users to come on board, and without having to get frustrated because, why am I now waiting 10 minutes for this block? I've came from Solana where stuff happens instantly. Now I need to wait 10 minutes or longer. How do you solve that UX problem without having to tell them, oh, sorry, yeah, Bitcoin's slower? How can you just do it, build out the tooling that kind of explains it that way? And even just inscription as a service, that wasn't a thing before Ordinals. And I created that UI over the weekend, and it's now somehow became the de facto UI for inscriptions services, which is funny. Everyone's using the same drag and drop modal thing. It's kind of similar to the Uniswap days, where like back in the day, everyone would just clone Uniswap. That became the de facto swap UI, So yeah, it's a really exciting time to start to be designing UX and Bitcoin, because we need everything, right, from wallets to marketplaces to DeFi to DAOs, everything that's been.
Let me ask you a question. So you have this valuable inscription service for Ordinals, and if I understand, you have an API for that. What is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what unicorn level ideas do you think people could build using your API? You know.
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of the stuff is powered by ordinals, right? The whole every single BRC20 token, you need to inscribe something. You need to inscribe a deploy inscription, then you need to mint them, and then you need to transfer them out. Everything's all based around inscription. So, you know, we see the inscription services and education around running your own node as well. By the way, you know, we're definitely, you know, advocates of that as well. That's a fundamental part of the cog in the wheel of how this is all going to work. We need inscription services and people running their own nodes and understanding how it works. So we are building out APIs to kind of just put a layer on top and make it a little bit easier for developers to come in. We just launched our SDK as well, which makes it really easy for people to just install that and literally just drop files on that and then send things. In terms of what can be built and what's going to be the next unicorn from that, it's impossible to tell. I mean, I can't see what the future will hold. I just think that the more builders in the space and the more ideas will come, it'll kind of be born there. I think that it might even be something completely new. Maybe it's something we've never even seen before in Web3 potentially, because I mentioned Bitcoin as a fundamentally different chain. There might be a use case that none of us are even thinking about. But I would still love to see, like Charlie said, you know, DAOs and different things like that. You know, DAOs are fundamentally security driven, right? You know, it's all about security and trustlessness, and you can't get a better chain than Bitcoin for those aspects. So I'd love to see DAOs, you know, really flourishing on Bitcoin. And then I'd love to see more trading and marketplaces and different things like that pop up, and just more users, more activity. But yeah, I'm not the guy to ask for the unicorn thing. I just want people to build and see what they think. I think.
Well, I think you just touched on some of those right there. I mean,
doesn't need to be a unicorn, right? Either, you know, you can just build an app and see how it goes, and maybe it's a unicorn, but maybe it's also serving 10 people, and you've just made it really easy for those guys. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, perfectly fine making a business that, you know, in the millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions. There's definitely a big bandwidth there below unicorn level 1 billion. Yeah, I mean, Robin, let's get to you in a second here, but since Brian brought up marketplaces, I think is a good time to let's transition over here to Bob, who's about to launch the fastest ordinals marketplace, right? Bionic. Also, you're also representing for ICP, which has also put up a fair amount of prizes for this hackathon. What are some of the things that, like, you know, of course you're building a marketplace, but in addition to that, well, when is that launching? First of all, I'm curious.
Yeah, we're doing end-to-end testing right now. So everything's built, everything's working, doing full end-to-end testing on our offers. You'll be able to make offers on any ordinal, and you'll be able to do it without actually sending any Bitcoin out of your wallet, using like authorizations, using the wrapped Bitcoin on ICP. We'll also be releasing English auctions, so fully featured auctions with ordinals, and then, you know, your normal buy sell within collections for ordinals. So just testing like crazy right now. So hoping to get it out in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how testing goes. But yeah, very, very excited about that.
Yeah. So, all right. So I think it goes without saying, like marketplaces definitely has unicorn potential. I mean, we saw what happened with like say OpenSea on the Ethereum side, but I do agree that the like, I wouldn't say pond, maybe Ethereum is like, it seems like an ocean right now, but then we'll realize it's a pond and the real ocean is Bitcoin. Right. And, but you know, like sort of like go like on this topic of, you know, what are some big ideas that could be big commercially, right? I mean, for your marketplace, I could totally see how that could link up with, say, Liquidium, Robin's project, right? Because ordinals lending, borrowing, that potentially could become a unicorn too. But it's also like an extra service that can almost be like an API on a marketplace, right? People they ran out of money, but they have ordinals in their wallet and they want more liquidity, right? You have Liquidium like running on the back end. I could totally see something like that happening too. What are some of these like things that need, like, you know, like a lot of unicorns could connect with each other, create more value for the entire market, right? How do you see this ecosystem evolving, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I'll answer a couple different ways. When I try to think about like unicorn ideas, I think the most important thing is technical, smart team that is building in the right space, that isn't afraid to pivot, and that builds and executes quickly and then iterates based on user feedback. And if you listen to the unicorn stories in hindsight, it's really easy to paint this beautiful narrative for how it unfolded. But in reality, it's like some super smart guys that all got in a room and tried something and failed, and tried another thing and failed, and tried another thing and failed, and then finally saw traction on idea, Z or X or something, and then
Yeah,
ran with it, and then had time with lucky timing in the market, plus had awesome awesome product market fit. And despite their failings at a company, you get pulled out into the market as a viable solution. And so, I'm not going to throw out ideas like, oh, this is going to be a unicorn idea, when what we think is going to be a unicorn, it could be, but it also might not be. And so, speed of development, speed of getting feedback from your users, I think is most important. And then I'll say that we've built a lot of tech at Bionic that can enable others to quickly kind of leverage a smart contract environment for ordinals. I know, as a founder, you could pick DLCs, you could pick stacks, you could pick sovereign rollups almost. I know there are a couple teams working on sovereign rollups, so that will eventually be a tech stack you can pick. You can pick another side chain, like you could pick Ethereum. I know a lot of people are building kind of wrap your ordinals to Ethereum and do things. We've picked ICP because of all the really nice protocol primitives that we get. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and people can hate me for this if they want, but I think the fastest way to build a prototype for something interesting on ordinals is going to be using ICP smart contracts with ordinals. So, bring on the hate. We can have some kind of like developer competition or something, building out solutions, but just the convenience and the developer user experience building with ICP smart contracts is just pretty good. And so that's my thesis right now, is if you want to iterate quickly, if you want to get a prototype up really fast, come talk to me, leverage some of our existing infra, build smart contracts in TypeScript or Python or Rust for ordinals, and do it on ICP. I readily acknowledge there are some additional trust assumptions by building on a sidechain. And we can talk through what those trust assumptions are. But yeah, that's basically our strategy with Bionic, is let's make the user experience really, really good, and let's iterate quickly.
Yeah, looking forward to that. About a month from now, I'm gonna go live, right? Really excited about that. And although obviously I have to take a neutral stance, but there are some very compelling benefits of using ICP. I don't know which one's the best one, but ICP is definitely part of this hackathon. We call it Bitcoin Olympics. Is we want to get rid of that hate. Like when I came into Bitcoin, like less than 2 years ago, actually, I'm pretty new to Bitcoin. I saw this ossified culture, and there's like all the tribes combined was not even 1% of Ethereum, but there was like bickering and not working together in general. And I said, this is ridiculous. Why don't we just do a hackathon and invite them all? Let's invite them all. And what happened was like the most open-minded people from each tribe are coming forth, like on this panel or an office hour, or like a talk, like in the hackathon, or through our program, right? Our main program. And when the most open-minded champions from each camp, they get together and cross-pollinate, we have another level of innovation. And so this is an exciting thing. Last time the contestants were raving about, hey, this is the first time we saw so many different Bitcoin technologies under one roof. I think we had 5 different types of Bitcoin tech. This time we have 12. So it's going to be even more like a kid in a candy shop, so to speak, if you're a dev. But we also have room for marketing people. So, sign up at BTC Startup Lab. Now, speaking about great ideas, right? I think Robin had his hand up there. Robin, do you want to chime in? Like, if you weren't building Liquidium, right, which is growing fast, you picked a really great project to work on, right? If you weren't building Liquidium, what are some of the other ordinal projects you might build?
Yeah, I have. So I think one thing that is kind of ordinal specific, or in a way like you would use the ordinal protocol, is stable coins. So stable coins, I think, is a huge one. If we in some way bring stable coins to layer 1 Bitcoin, I think that would like drive a lot of institutional adoption and so on, which would be great for the space because more liquidity, more demand, and so on. It's just like a flywheel, I guess. And then on top of that, so I think, yeah, stablecoins are definitely, if you nail them, they would be a unicorn easily. And then I have some more boring things, I guess, and that would not necessarily be something where you would have to be a software engineer for. But for example, what I'm thinking about, and I think many people in the space have kind of troubles with it, is like the whole legal framework. And for example, with like if you look at how can we build a company in 2023 in the United States, for example, you have services like Stripe Atlas, Clerky, and everything that make it so easy for you to build a company because they handle all of the legal stuff for you for like a fee. And I think if you have some sort of crypto legal service that handles like all of the I guess challenges that come with, like, okay, what do you have to look out for if you're creating a token? What just things like that. I think that would be a cool idea. Also, like some things like learning platforms where you can just learn about Bitcoin script, and so on. And yeah, in general, like stuff for institutions as well. I think that's some opportunities that I just wanted to get out there.
Super. Thanks for that, Robin. We're coming up on the last like 20 minutes here. Do you guys have any more input on like what can we build on ordinals, or are you guys fine with moving over to Q&A? We have some people who are coming up as they have their hands raised here in the crowd.
Yeah, I'll just say Danny mentioned earlier he dipped, but he mentioned state changes. I look at Bitcoin's block space as like the premium, most pristine block space, and that is something that's going to be in high demand once people figure out they actually want to track a lot of the things that are happening. So when I look at like giant, again, I use this term design space, there's going to be a giant market for tracking state changes. And this is stuff that is like requires like these like large institutions and large actors who need a neutral place to track these things. And Bitcoin is perfect for this. I think it's not as B2C, it's probably more B2B or perhaps B2G in that world, but I think that's a massive opportunity and a simple primitive towards tracking state changes using inscriptions and ordinals could be unbelievably huge.
Super. That's also another category, another genre that could be explored. And I'm hoping some, like at least a few teams take on each one of these projects and let the best teams win. Speaking about winning, right? There's for ordinals, there's the OCM prizes. If you're doing something else aside from art, you still qualify for the $50,000 in agnostic Bitcoin prizes. So it doesn't matter what technology you use. If you use ordinals to build them, you can access that $50,000. It's two $5,000 prizes, a $10,000, a $30,000 prize. So it could be a game changer for people. And then so let's how about this? Brian, like say a few last words, and then we have John up here who wants to ask a question. So Brian, you go, and then we'll open up the Q&A.
Yeah, it's just about people entering, and before Danny left, he mentioned about creating artwork potentially and things like that, and what they have done. I've got a few cheat codes for people if they're interested in how they might go about inscribing some cool art on Bitcoin, especially
All right, let's go for some. Let's hear it.
So number one is ChatGPT, right? Go in there and just say and get creative with your wording and tell it to write you a 3JS kind of a code for whatever you can think of, basically, and then it'll do it for you and experiment, and then use platforms like codepen.com or jsfiddle.com to actually preview the thing that you've generated and tweak the values and mess around with it, change the colors, and then you just basically inscribe that HTML, and then you can pull in Danny's libraries that he inscribed previously. Another great one is just like searching Google for like, give me examples of really cool HTML canvas examples, and then you'll be able to open up like examples of people making really cool particle effects and things like that. So you can take those particle effects and wrap and do some cool things with them. So definitely don't be scared and think you need to do artwork. And if you're not an artist, you can build some cool code-based dynamic generative art just by doing a little bit of research and seeing how other people are doing it.
Super, thank you for that. So thanks everyone for all your great ideas. Let's open it up to Q&A for the audience here. John, go for it.
Albert, always a pleasure. Charlie, thanks for bringing me up. Sci4, good to see you in the chat or in the spaces. In reference to marketplaces and attracting more users, we've actually launched something. We were the hackathon second place, and we took our AI to bring in a marketplace that actually is safe for everybody. But we've integrated social media so that anybody with social media can actually have an ordinal wallet, and all you have to do is log in to our marketplace, and anybody can now collect ordinals. The pitfall of credit cards, and we're actually we have our application in review with Stripe, is that they are very frowning heavily on anything crypto based. You can't sell crypto very easily. You have to be more large, like Coinbase or something like that. But we found that with our split market, we actually are addressing this split market technique where we allow artists to upload digital art onto our platform and let them sell it in a marketplace for cryptocurrency. So therefore, we're not actually selling cryptocurrency. We're allowing the user to accumulate cryptocurrency, but we will be allowing users to buy the art like you would in an art gallery and on Main Street with credit cards. So this actually satisfies Stripe's policy in reference to not selling crypto. But once the user or the artist basically sells their art, they will receive a payment through Stripe and so forth for their art, and then they can sell it and get crypto and then put it on chain or inscribe it. A one-stop platform is needed so that anybody on social media can link their account and receive ordinals or receive digital currencies using social media, because the social media aspect of it is the distribution aspect. And if you're going to get Main Street adoption, you have to, I know it's crypto Twitter, but at the same time, that's where the people are. They're on social media. And if you can easily transmit an ordinal to a user by simply tipping them an ordinal or tipping them crypto on social media, and then bringing them over, having them linked to a marketplace that is linked to their social media, and then everything transitions over into the marketplace where they can then turn around and sell that art or ordinal for crypto. That's your onboarding. So now they didn't even have to have crypto. They could have bought the art with their credit card and then sold it for crypto, and now they're onboarded.
Yeah, so basically you don't just have like ordinals collection in your wallet. It's like linked to social media, so it's like really easy to also market it.
And it satisfies banks because you're not selling crypto, you're selling artwork. And you can even, at that point, you can even sell a couple. You can buy them with your buy the artwork with your credit card, sell a couple of them, then use the Bitcoin, Litecoin, and so forth. We allow every user to do all the different cryptos to pay for the inscription, and then basically offload it into a personal wallet. So it's an interesting way of approaching the idea, but
thanks for sharing.
All about adoption. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, John, and great job on launching that marketplace. I see Allpay was up here, and then we have Rafa, and then we have the P3N5IV. All right, so Allpay, did you want to say something or ask a question?
Yeah, it's a question for the panel. You know, touching on the concept of potential unicorns in the future and what those applications are. You know, I hear a lot of crypto native kind of thinking going on, but my background being in marketing and in technology and development, you know, I guess I have my best developed muscles are around mass adoption and onboarding people who might not have the benefits even of everything we learned through the Ethereum days and the wallet days in that world. So I guess my question is, you know, is there any thinking amongst you guys around mass adoption use cases? I have my own project that's looking at mass adoption, and so I want to, you know, kind of abstract away the friction, of course, and taking cues from folks like Engine and Uniswap, who've created webhooks to wallets, which make that really much easier, right? And then and I got kind of red pilled by OCM. What they did with recursion really kind of got the creative side of my brain spinning and smoking, because it's like, oh, there's so much more that's possible now. And
right.
Yeah, it's like it changed my thinking, actually. It rewired my brain a little bit, because it was like, oh, ordinals is a superpower. And but I don't hear a ton about mass market adoption and use cases. It's still a lot of
okay. So that's a good question. We have two panels here with their hand raised. Robin, and then Brian, and then Cypher. You guys want to go for it?
Yeah, I just wanted to address that. Like, yes, I think mass adoption is like something that we really need, and we need kind of these services for whatever it is to onboard like all of the web 2 people. I think that we're still in a really early stage where it's like where we don't have the infrastructure to kind of onboard the web 2 people yet, because I think as soon as you want to onboard like the masses, you have to make the layer of blockchain invisible. And I see that there could be really cool use cases, even with like just simple stuff like partially signed Bitcoin transactions or some sort of DLCs that you could plug into like financial apps that everybody uses, kind of like Cash App was integrating Bitcoin, but maybe even in a more like more complex way. For example, like even lending that is in the back end done by or on the Bitcoin blockchain or something like that. I think something like this could be huge, but I think it always leads to making the blockchain invisible in some sort. But yeah, I would love to hear like different opinions as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? That's another step towards like an extremely awesome user experience. Brian, and then Cypher.
Yeah, exactly. Just following on what Robin said, I think that when you peel back the layer and kind of just make the blockchain invisible, that's when you get real mass adoption. And I wanted just to highlight a perfect example of this that happened recently, which was the Reddit digital assets. And they didn't call them NFTs purposefully, right? They were just collectibles, and then they onboarded tens of millions of their users in this space, and it was all behind the scenes, kind of Polygon or Ethereum based NFTs essentially. But they didn't even mention that, you know, you just got this kind of like onboarding, which was made it really easy for people. And then if they dug a little bit deeper on it and peeled back a little bit of a layer, you could easily export it to your MetaMask. But it was not, that wasn't the first port of entry. The first port of entry was, hey, we're Reddit, and this is your profile, and here's a cool collectible you can get. And I think that's a key, maybe, in a blueprint to how you can onboard people in that kind of way. And it's really difficult to see what that'll be on Bitcoin. But I think ordinals, what ordinals have done in general is like onboard a lot of people into Bitcoin that have never even looked at it before, especially from the Ethereum side, and those crypto natives who, you know, now they understand what the mempool is and what UTXOs are and what sats are, and oh, by the way, you can get special kind of sats and they're collectibles and that kind of thing. So the more users in the space, the more it'll force projects like ours and everyone else here to just drive things forward and build out the infrastructure, like Robin says, so that, you know, I wouldn't want to build infrastructure first and wait on it. There's nothing quite as motivating as 10,000 degens screaming on your Discord to get you to do something. And I've faced that, right? You know, and it's definitely a motivator, and it's great. It gets you going, you know, and because you want to kind of almost prove them wrong and say, no, I can do this and it will work, you know. And then you know, it's a good motivator to try and make it work for them and try and make it robust. Yeah, so it's a really exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how do you peel back the layers and what can people build on top of Bitcoin, and people don't even know they're using the most secure blockchain in the world. They just got a really great experience, and then if they peel back one layer, they'll find that they've actually got an asset or a service which is like built on top of gold, basically, you know. So yeah, I'm interested to see what creative people will build.
Super. Yeah, those are great additions. And what about you, Cypher? After Cypher, we could go to the next question. Rafa has a question. I think Rafa is already building something here on ordinals, connection between ordinals and DeFi. So that'd be pretty interesting. But let's hear from Cypher first. Mass adoption.
Yeah. So mass market adoption is an excellent idea, but if you are dumbing the experience down is the only way that you are capable of achieving mass market adoption, your product will not be a unicorn. That doesn't mean it's not a good product. It doesn't mean it won't be amazing. It doesn't mean it won't be impactful. But what I mean by that is the users are not incapable of learning this stuff. They proved in this. If you remember the massive number of people that flooded into the space, February, March, April, they proved that they could not only learn this, but learn it at a level that's way above what most Bitcoiners were aware of. And this is people who did not have experience. Like in some cases, they didn't even know how to access hidden files on their MacBooks, and went from that to now they talk about BIPs on a weekly basis. So while it is good, I do fully support optimizing user experience and workflows. You have to remember that if your product is not compelling without that, it will not make the product more compelling magically. It will make it easier to use the product. It'll make the product better, but that magical spark doesn't get created through optimizing a user experience. What the user experience optimization does is multiplies what you already have. And then
that's a really good point.
With that said, there are edge cases to this, places where everything I just said can be thrown out the window. If you're coupling education with these optimizations to the user experience, that is a place where every bit of optimization you do becomes incredibly valuable, because you're also at the same time letting people see the process in an easy one-click or two-click manner, while explaining to them the bigger, more robust version of what they're going through. This is a great educational tool. It's why we simplify problems down to their very minimal set when we teach children, while at the same time mentioning oh yeah, and you also have all these other things. We don't get into what a carburetor is when you teach a kid how a car goes. Well, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you're more hardcore than I am. So that's one of the edge cases where you can kind of toss out all the negativity I just gave you. The other one is Reddit. Reddit is an amazing example where they just released a Web 2 asset. I'm pretty sure they didn't even mint them ahead of time. I'm pretty sure they released them as strictly just in a database. It cost them nothing other than, a couple bytes of storage in their database cluster. But they had just that, hey, you want to bring this over to blockchain? That is a user experience tool that you should 100% exploit if you're looking for mass market, especially if you already have a product that's compelling enough to be a potential unicorn already. If you already got 4 hooves, hooking in Web 2 users with oh yeah, just come on over with your freebie that from Web 2 that costs us nothing, that will work 100% of the time on users. I'll do it. Even I'll get baited into it, and I know what you're doing.
I totally agree. I think they did it really, really well. That it was so seamless how they did it. Like it was right there since the beginning. You just didn't have to click on it to get interactive with it. But one click and you were already in the tutorial of how to get it into MetaMask, and really they onboarded them really well that way. I think that gaming companies might have a real lesson to learn there if they want to bring their current Web2 gaming people in the same manner, right? Like just use the same mechanics you've got to give people game assets, and then give them a really smooth onboarding process of how to actually get that on chain. And then you've got real good kind of flow of people moving in without affecting their Web2 thing, rewriting the whole playbook. The people are already buying assets in games. You're just adding that extra layer of like, hey, now you can move it over and put that same asset in another game just by doing this thing. So yeah, there's a lot of less. Someone's got to write a thesis on this bloody Reddit.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure. And then I see Robin's hand up, and then Rafa here. I just want to touch on what Saffir said, because I think it's so important. I mean, like everyone knows how difficult it is to get into ordinals, right? But it was such a huge demand that people just figured it out, despite like the very difficult user experience. And I think this is an exciting time on Bitcoin right now. Is like, if we talk about this like a video game, Ethereum is like on level 100. Bitcoin is on, in terms of like development, is like 0.5 level, like level 1, right? And then the nice thing about being on level 1 is that there's a bunch of massive pain points where if you solve the pain point, the user experience doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you take that pain away, there's just, and then that is the crux of a massive company, right? And then like Saffir said, as you iterate towards like a extremely awesome user experience, then yeah, you're going to onboard more and more people. But the time that you take to iterate and fine tune that user experience, a fraction of that time put onto producing a product that's solving a big pain is already like the value you get from the latter is so much bigger, right? It's also the crux of justifying putting in that much time for an awesome user experience, right? Yeah, so that's a great point.
There's a phrase I like to use for this: don't waste your time sharpening a mace.
Yeah, right.
Like, yes, it will make the mace better at cutting, but at the end of the day, look for the product that's a sword that cuts into the market better than anything else.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's a really good point. So Robin, do you have something real quick, and then we'll get to Rafa here? Like if you could summarize, then we'll get to Rafa, because we're almost.
I just wanted to mention, like, I totally agree with all of this. I think you definitely shouldn't dumb down the product, but you should make it accessible for dumber persons or something, or people that don't want to learn. Because like, if you look at the history of essentially every mass product, if you look at like computers, in the beginning you had like IBM systems where you had like the terminal and you had to operate completely via keyboard. You could learn it. It's not that hard, but it's a learning curve. And if you give them a GUI, you like a graphical user interface, then and a mouse with just one button on it, and that was kind of what the original Mac was. It was just like a GUI and one mouse with like just one button. You couldn't do anything wrong. Like, you didn't have to learn anything. You could pick it up right away. And I think with crypto, it's kind of, I think there are some things that are really easy to learn, yes, but you could still make it a little bit easier without removing functionality. Like, for example, we have .sats names. If you integrate .sats names natively into wallets, cool. That's one step easier for people, because they don't have to like remember what a like an address is for. If you kind of replace seed phrases with something else, or give them at least the option to replace the seed phrases, you don't have to teach them what is a seed phrase, or what is an address, what is taproot as an address, what is a SegWit address, and so on. I think just like making it so people can pick it up without having to read anything. That's kind of the last puzzle piece to mass adoption. But besides that, totally agree with all what you said.
Thank you for that, Robin. And Rafa, do you have a question here before we wrap up?
Yeah, actually, thank you so much. I have a quick question. Before I ask it, I just want to say that I agree. I think like on the topic of mass adoption, there's this saying that blockchains do not scale, and they actually scale on layers upon layers. Although today there's a lot of growth to be accomplished on Bitcoin layer 1, and that's where my team is building today. And so the question maybe to the folks in here, I see Bitcoin, so leveraging the specificities of Bitcoin, I see it as the Fed wire of the world, where instead what you have for stacks or the ICP is more like the layers where you can have bank accounts and more like a retail type. So Bitcoin reserved for high value, low frequency, and the security of it. So the question is around, maybe if we have a little bit of time, if you guys in the room be able to pick your brains is awesome. How do you see, because I agree with the idea of the stable coin on Bitcoin, like bringing that ability for a Bitcoiner to be able to reduce their position or de-risk their position whenever, the price is hyped for a reason or for another. Or these DeFi protocols, or again, that come onto Bitcoin and that can do that on behalf of the pool of users that they have. I see actually the stablecoin as something that is very useful, like to be able to...
Rafa, can you just summarize your question, because we are on time?
Yeah. So the question is how do you see it designed, like the stablecoin on Bitcoin? Thank you for your time.
I could jump in. The idea of Bitcoin scaling in layers, I think it's a useful mental model. I think it is limited in that it says these blockchains or systems are networks are hierarchical. And I actually think my view is that we broaden the term to abstractions, and some of these are built on top of each other. We have new ideas recurring in Bitcoin of side chains or versions of side chains. And then we also have interesting technologies which actually add more expressibility to Bitcoin in different scripting types and different ways we can interpret UTXOs, or kind of how Bitcoin is spent. And just on the specific and this leads me into the specific topic of stable coins, because Tether was launched on Bitcoin close to a decade ago. And a couple days ago, they officially announced that Tether was no longer going to be built on Bitcoin in the current way that it exists. And rather, in that announcement, they said, we might explore something called RGB for future types of stablecoin issuance on Bitcoin. RGB is not really a layer 2 on Bitcoin. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's a way of adding more expressibility and client-side verification of smart contracts on Bitcoin while working within Bitcoin consensus rules. And so I see that as a very interesting mechanic, and it also challenges this idea that Bitcoin and things like it have to scale in layers, and rather, I say there are a number of ways that Bitcoin specifically can and will scale, and layers is just one. And so I just kind of pull that specific example out because I think it maps well onto your question here and the topic of Bitcoin scalability.
I think that's a perfect point to end this discussion on. The underlying point there is there's so many different technologies coming to play right now, and really it's just limited by your imagination. With that said, come on, come all, sign up to the Bitcoin Olympics. If you have an idea, if you want to get your feet wet on innovating something original on Bitcoin, we have all these panelists are here to help you. We have and many more mentors. There are over $100,000 in prizes now, which makes us I think the biggest agnostic and prize pool on Bitcoin this year. But we also have 12 different technology stacks coming into play that you could be choosing from to build the next awesome thing, ordinals being one of them. So again, BTC Startup Lab, and sign up, get in Discord. You'll get a video replay of this panel, but there's also a lot of other videos too, an incredible amount of new content that you cannot Google. So it's very, very cool stuff. just by signing up and joining this Discord. With that said, thank you so much, guys. Robin from Liquidium, Charlie and Cypher from Luxor Mining, Brian from OrdinalsBot, and Dylan here from Bitcoin Magazine, and Bob, who just dropped off from Bionic and ICP, and of course Danny from Medic and OCM. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it, and let's build the Bitcoin economy together. Let's do it. Thank you, guys, so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Great spaces, Albert. You got a lot of people in, so yeah, it's funny.